Hello and welcome to Clockwork Noodles. Usually you guys would probably follow me for airing animes, anything seasonal which is going on. There's a lot of anime out there that I have seen that isn't airing anymore and I never got a chance to talk about it. So I've had to come up with a new segment that allows me to go into older animes and also just continue doing what I really find fascinating, and that is breaking down anime and working out how and why things do what they do. So this new segment is going to be called What is in a Design, where we are going to look at a specific character from a season. I've got a nice little list of ones I kind of want to go into initially. If this series really takes off, then you guys can start suggesting characters as well. But this is going to be where we look at a character, we look at the art, the clothing, and how everything is cleverly reflected back. How is the colour being used to show you a character's personality? How are things even being foreshadowed via the artwork, via the clothing? How can you know a character's a bad guy before they even announce they're a bad guy? So we are going to be looking at breaking things down, how clever these guys are, the amount of sheer love and thought that goes into many of the anime characters that we maybe don't even think about when we're watching an anime. The season is in full swing. This episode, I'm going to call them episodes, I guess. We are going to be diving back into 2020. Heaven forbid that I really didn't want to go back to 2020, but sadly, there was something good that came out of 2020. Also, for those who are interested, I am cross-referencing. Initially, all the colour work and all the breakdowns are my own, but for things which are canon, getting the actual canon heights and stuff, I am double-checking things just to ensure that things are a little bit more accurate. My biggest concern with most of the things like this is making sure that I don't say anything that is inaccurate. So we are now diving back into 2020, and what a year it was. A little gem came out back in the winter anime season, and that was ID Invaded, or ID Invaded. I kept calling it ID Invaded, but today we're going to be talking and discussing Akihito Narihisago, or the brilliant detective Sakaido, as we kind of have to look at both of them to see how really clever the artwork on this one is. So we will be discussing Akihito first, and then I always will back it up with Sakaido because Sakaido is still Akihito. So there's very, very clever artwork, very clever little colour schemes which are going on with these two characters. So we're going to break it down and spend a bit more time just focusing on one thing that I absolutely love, and I absolutely adored ID Invaded. And sadly, I didn't watch it initially when it came out, so I didn't get to break it down or anything. So we are going to now look at how the artwork, the design, basically shows us very cleverly 3 different stages of the same person and how they are all very subtly displayed. So first things first, let's get the voice actors out of the way because we have to appreciate the sheer work and design and love that goes into creating a character. So for the Japanese voice actor, we have our god Kenjiro Tsuda, who, if you follow any of my videos, you know how much I adore this man. So that is Tsuda Ken, who is our voice actor on the Japanese side. On the English side, which I haven't actually seen the English edit, there is Josh Grell. Those are our voice actors who bring to the screen, bring to life the character that is Akihito. We will be discussing spoilers, so if you are planning to watch ID Invaded, turn away now, go watch it and then come back, because I will be using some spoilers because it falls into the design. A lot of the stuff that the design is doing is also building into the plot. So first things first, he is indeed a widower. So he had a daughter, he had a wife. His daughter was sadly killed, and his wife ended up not being able to take it anymore, committed suicide, leaving Akihito all alone on his own. This is where we now pick up with him. And this is all very cleverly shown as well. So he's broken, he's twisted, and he's a man who carries a lot of trauma. And in case we want to kind of get it out there, the Akihito we follow is also a killer. So he has indeed killed people. We're here mainly to focus on how the design blends into this. Next up is the height. From the 2 references I managed to source, he is 5'10", so he's not exactly the tallest guy in the world. He is 178 centimeters, if that is how you guys rock. Age is not mentioned, but Sakaido himself is intended to be a younger self. He's supposed to be the younger personality of Narihisago, and that's all before his trauma, which makes this very interesting. So being able to flick back and forward, there's a lot of subtle differences, but it makes it even more fascinating to look into. Let's talk about the hair, and we're going to start with Narihisago. He has a faded, dusty pink, longish, spiky hair that actually falls downwards. Very different from his ID Well counterpart, whose hair is more upright. This is a very subtle nod to the fact that his hair is down, It's unkempt, it's very messy, which kind of states that the character we're dealing with doesn't really care for appearances, no longer is looking after himself. He's depressed, he is carrying trauma, and he's also in jail, so he doesn't really have a reason to look after his appearance anymore. It's also very important to note, which I found very fascinating when I read this, was that the hair was actually brighter in his younger years. So his hair was a brighter pink, which is going to be very fun now as we talk about colour. First things first, before we talk about light pink, let's talk about what pink in general means. Pink is often used to show compassion, warmth, kindness, playful, a youth, and that is where I think really, really nicely builds into the character that we initially saw, the Akihito that was. We know he was a family man. We know he also adored his family to bits. We've got quite a few several scenes with him, and the fact that he would just give anything just to save his family. He loves his family more than anything. The fact as well that it is light pink. Light pink is actually more of a tender colour, so it's very soothing. And a little fun fact which I found as well, so this is also, we'll be picking out fun facts, that light pink is actually used within the holding cells to calm down violent criminals, which is quite a nice tie-in as Narihisago is in jail. So quite a nice little fun fact that I thought was relevant to put in. Now let's talk about why the fadedness is important. The faded version of who he is now is because he has lost all of these traits that I've just mentioned, the love, the warmth, the kindness. They're gone. They are no more. These are all part of the past. All of the aspects that love, the kindness, have now died in Narihisago. As with his worldview, his reason to live has faded. Everything that he kind of lived for, his family, has been taken from him, and he is now a faded shell of a self. So these are lighter versions of bright colours. Colours also naturally fade in time. It's quite nice just to see them using a faded out colour for him because I think it really works. Simply one colour choice already has shown us two states of the same character. We know that the current version is a faded version, so we can also presume that at one point, like we already know, his hair was brighter and he had all of these aforementioned traits that we have just gone through. So we're already starting to get a little insight into the character without really looking too far into the plot so far. But now let's flick over to our brilliant detective, Sakaido. Sakaido's hair is much brighter, and this, of course, is because he's meant to be a younger version of himself. So this is the version before the trauma. Also, bearing in mind that Sakaido, when he wakes up in his wells, he is a blank slate each time. So he can't actually remember anything, which is great because it actually shows us a more honest, real version of himself. The salmon pink, that is what his hair is, actually is more of a hopeful colour because it's got the orange mixed in with it. So it's a hopeful colour. And Sakaido is quite hopeful. He's a lot younger, so he's obviously got a lot of hope for his future because he doesn't know what the future holds. His hair is styled more upwards, which again, a more hopeful, a more spiky look, a more sharper, bolder claim that he is indeed also a detective. His bolder look is also resonating with the fact that he's got these great skills and he's got a great reasoning skill and he's also got a great eye for detail. Sakaido's personality is also pre-trauma, so we know that these colours are going to be brighter, and these are all just reflected right back at us with just a simple choice of making the hair slightly brighter. For the eyes, there is actually a slight deviation with the anime. Within the manga, the eyes were shown as blue, but within the anime, the choice was made to make them green, and I like the fact that they made them green. So let's talk about green as a colour very quickly. Green can be a symbol for the heart. It's growth. We know that Sakaido grows. Sakaido grows within his wells as he pieces together the mysteries. Narihisago also grows as a character. Even if it is bad or good, he is still growing. So even though he might be a faded, twisted version of himself, he still grows as a character. Green is also a sign of sincerity. I think both versions are quite sincere, even if it does come down to being truthful about whispering a few cold hard facts to a serial killer and prompting them to commit suicide, or just even being Sakaido, who is very sincere when he sees a dead body and cries. Self-control also being a very important aspect of green, where Sakaido executes great self-control. He basically wakes up in pieces and he's able to level his head out and put himself back together. So he's able to keep a nice level head and he's very self-controlled. Green is also a sign of harmony and renewal. Sakaido, I think, also shows a nice, renewed, hopeful version of Narihisago. It's a renewed state. It's almost giving him a new lease of life within these ID wells. Facial hair. Narihisago has some stubble. He is in jail, and we also mentioned that he's not looking after himself anymore, so he doesn't really have a reason to shave or anything. Also, interesting fact that a depressed rabbit will not groom itself because it's just depressed, and it basically doesn't put any emphasis on looking after itself anymore. Happy rabbits groom themselves, so if you have a bunny and you see it grooming a lot, you know it's happy. So I figured as well that him having stubble and kind of letting his look go also being an aspect of depression and his trauma. Let's talk about clothing. So Akihito or Narihisago, I do have a habit of flicking between the two names. It's a little bit difficult with him. He does wear a prison outfit. So when it comes to uniforms, it's a little bit harder to show personality, but they do manage to do it. So the uniform itself is white trousers, black shirt, white jacket. However, it is the way he wears his jacket that shows us his personality, because he actually ties his jacket around his waist. So he's never really seen wearing the jacket, but it shows his personality as being a bit more casual, a bit more carefree, a little bit more comfortable as well. So he's pretty comfortable with the position he's in. He doesn't seem to fight the fact that he's in jail. He's come to terms with the fact that he's there, and that's what he does day to day. So he's quite comfortable within himself. Sakaido is a lot more interesting to dissect, but at the same time, the look for Sakaido is supposed to be based on a detective look. Sakaido's detective is very interesting. He wears a light brown trench coat, which I love to bits. He has a light grey shorts and some black leggings, giving him a very, very kind of youthy, casual feel. And he has got a long whitish grey vest on with some trainers. Overall, contrasting a very youthful, casual overlook. And most importantly, the signature iconic yellow long scarf, which also makes for some beautiful artwork. Yellow being very important. It's the first time we've seen the colour introduced. Yellow means youth, childhood, hope, and calm. Youth and childlike because this is indeed a younger version. The calm, we've already noted that Sakaido is able to remain very, very calm and level-headed. He remembers absolutely nothing, so he is a lot more innocent. And the smart casual look, I think, works really, really well. And the fact that we've got a very soft palette. The only real bright colour going on with either of the two is this yellow, the yellow of the scarf, which is hope. It's a nice hopeful outlook. It's calm, it's youth, it's childlike. It's a very innocent scarf. The colour palette being mainly dusky pink, white, black, light brown and yellow. There are no strong colours within this design, and I like that choice. The yellow, the only striking character colour we see, is the hopefulness of Sakaido, and the overall artwork and colour choice is very soft because this man is a shell of himself. He no longer exhibits these bright colours because he's faded, he's twisted, he is no longer himself and he has been hurt. His outlook on the world as well is very, very twisted. So any brightness that he might have formerly had is now gone. It's just another little look at 3 different states of him, which is really, really cleverly done. I also kind of figured that they were a little bit murkier, the black, the white, the very, very basic colours going on. It's quite murky, where it might be reflecting that slightly twisted Narihisago, where we know that he hates serial killers to the point where he is able to talk his victims into committing suicide via the use of his own words, which makes him a very intelligent man. And it also reminded me, because I recently broke this series down on the channel, of Moriarty the Patriot, of mainly William James Moriarty, because he does actually kill, but he's also very, very controlled. And I figured there were a few little interesting links. So if you are interested in that series, I have got an entire series reviewed there for you guys to check out. There is a folder on the channel for Moriarty. The art style itself, ID Invaded uses a very soft art style. There isn't any heavy black borders, any heavy black shading unless there is a dark sequence. So if you're thinking about things with the heavy cartoony feel, things like My Hero Academia use very heavy block shading. ID Invaded is very, very soft. It's a very beautiful soft look. Akihito himself, he has longer unkempt hair because he shows he is no longer caring about his own appearance. Same with his stubble. He has no concerns for his appearance. He's also often shown as being very tired because you can kind of doubt this guy is really getting any sleep anymore, especially if he spends most of his nights trying to get serial killers to kill themselves. His eyes are often shown as quite lifeless, quite no sparkle. I recently drew both characters slap bang in the middle of, I had one half and one half, and I did learn a lot just from even trying to draw the fact that Akihito actually has a lot more bags under his eyes. The character design is really soft. There's no sharp features on his design, no like proper jawlines going in or anything, but also the fact that nothing on his design shouts out the word "I'm a killer." And this, I think, reflects nicely in the comment when he says, I didn't want to kill anyone. There was no malice, but the urge overwhelmed me. So I did. So I feel like this is quite nicely reflected within that sentence as well. He carries a trauma. He doesn't also walk as tall as Sakaido. Because he's got that very heavy past weighing down his shoulders, he kind of slouches around a bit, I do think as well. Doesn't really help with the fact that he's quite a short man, so he's not carrying himself too high. Sakaido, on the other hand, which is fantastic to study because he does walk a lot taller. He stands tall, reflective of that former homicide detective that Akihito once was. He is also a blank slate with no memory, so each time he finds Kaoru, he then only remembers the fact that he is indeed a brilliant detective. The art for Sakaido is sharper, his hair is shorter, it's crisper, it's neater. His eyes are also slightly more defined. And again, when I was drawing him, it's very, very slight. And these are tiny differences, but it's there. He has got slightly thicker eyelashes. It's just a little bit, but it's there. He's also quite childlike. We see him crying over Kaoru's dead body, thinking again that her life meant absolutely nothing. It affects him and we see him in tears. He, however, does have a nice calm appearance, which is reflected within that calm nature, his deductive reasoning skills, and the fact that he likes to analyse things. So he will analyse anything, taking his own time, so we know he's very controlled, until he is satisfied with the evidence he sees in front of him. We also know as well from his artwork as well, and that childlike innocence, he is quite empathetic, and we see within the anime that he's able to see the humans within each of the ID wells as a human, not just a bit of evidence. He's able to even try saving them, and this at times even derails the entire case. Obviously he gets multiple times of trying, but he does try and save people. So we do see that more hopeful, that more empathetic, the Sakaido who can still relate to people, compared to the now Akihito, who's so twisted he probably can't even relate anymore. He probably wouldn't be able to human very well. Some interesting random facts and some comments. The colour design, which we have just discussed quite nicely, is taking us through 3 different versions of Akihito Narihisago. The faded version, which we see initially, is the one which comes after all the trauma. This is the one which also holds the absolute resentment and hatred towards the serial killers. But we also know that he is very, very intelligent. This is nicely reflected very subtly. This reflects the fact that there was a former self, and we also get that former self, that third version of him, reflected within Sakaido as well, very subtly. So Sakaido will show us his younger, his purer, honest, more state. Obviously he has no memory, so he is basically acting on base impulse, where this is prior to trauma, and it's supposed to be a reflection of the younger self, but it isn't his younger self still. So it is still supposed to be a detective. It's supposed to be almost a arbiter in a sense. So, but both of the different 2 versions we've seen and how they are written and how they are drawn and everything about them, it does nicely give us a reflection upon who he was previously. The colour and the design is very, very cleverly used, and there's a lot of characters in this anime, and this anime in general is just very cleverly written, and I would love to at some point be able to do a proper breakdown, but at the moment I'm going to stick with being able to talk about the characters one by one if I can. I might come back to doing another character from It Invaded at some point, but I have got a list of 5 different characters from different series just to see how you guys react and whether you like it. Some random interesting facts now. There is indeed a manga series sequel that exists. Yes, there is a direct sequel that picks up straight after episode 12. I have not had the pleasure of reading this, but it also gives me hope that there could be a sequel one day for ID Invaded. It is indeed an original series, which makes it quite hard to do this video where I can't find any initial artworks for the guys, but you might be able to see when I do later characters from actual anime series with mangas and stuff, I will be pulling quite nicely from the actual art designs that the artists have drawn. With this, I had to basically use the anime pulls and screenshots and any promotional materials. The anime is sitting quite nicely at a 7.9 on my anime list. Narihisago is also a very intelligent character. Even though he is twisted, we see him also blaming himself for his family's demise, which kind of shows us a more human element that he blames himself. So even though he might be that more twisted individual, he is still actually relatable in the fact that he would do anything for his family. And there is a very nice sequence that you guys may even remember, and the beautiful song Memories of Love comes from, with the fact that he with him basically getting one last chance to spend with his family. I think a few people have noted that they were moved by that scene, and it definitely got me crying. Even though we have this colder, darker character that is the current Narihisago, he is still a character who is supposed to be relatable. He's supposed to be, you're supposed to root for him. He's supposed to be a character that you root for. And overall, I absolutely adore ID Id Invaded. I love it to pieces, and I'm kicking myself for picking it up late, and I'm also regretting starting my channel too late to even bring this one to you, because there is so much good work, and if you haven't seen it and you are watching my video for some reason and slightly spoiling it for yourself, do actually watch it. It's fantastic. The soundtrack is lovingly created. There are times when you're watching this anime, it feels like a movie because the soundtrack is just that good. And there are some fantastic insert songs. I'm still trying to get hold of the original soundtrack, but at the moment, unless I want to pay £145, it's not really available within the UK as of yet, but it's something I am looking forward to. So I hope you guys, hopefully now you guys have a rough idea of what this segment is going to be all about. There are a few YouTubers who do character facts and stuff, but I kind of want to do my own spin on it. I didn't want to get put off by this. I'm doing my own spins. The idea of this segment will be to break down just a character for 15-20 minutes, spend all that time on them, and basically acknowledge the good work that the artist goes to, the anime goes to, and the color as well. All these little elements basically can show you a lot about a character before you even click the play button. So initially, even just seeing that dusty hair and those kind of more dead eyes and the stubble, you know that this is going to be a very complicated character initially. There's a lot of really good design details, and the way it's handled with this character in particular, it's done so well. So I have had so much fun researching this one. It does take a little bit longer to make these, so I won't be bringing these out weekly. They will be coming out infrequently. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel if you like this new format. And as well, you are going to be following any of my current releases for winter 2021. Hello and happy new winter 2021. If you like this new format, do let me know. So I need to be judging the numbers to see whether these are worth continuing. And as well, if they do get quite popular, I will be taking the suggestions by you guys on characters you think are interesting enough to deserve a breakdown. Let me break them apart, dig them together, a bit like Sakaido when he ends up into little bits and pieces. Let me put them to pieces and then put them back together again. So I hope you guys are looking after yourselves. By the time this goes up, hopefully I will be breaking down Winter 2021 anime with you guys. I really look forward to. Make sure you guys jump over to the Discord channel. We do have one. And you guys can get a notification whenever a video goes up on the channel. And I hope you guys are taking care. Bye-bye, guys.